Arthur Schopenhauer never married. He lived most of his life alone, in the company of his books, his thoughts, and his beloved poodle, Atma. To society, he looked like a bitter recluse, a man too cold or too arrogant to settle down. But Schopenhauer saw something most men never see until their lives are already broken. The illusions of love and marriage are among the cruelest traps nature sets for man. He understood that what appears to be companionship is often servitude, that what is dressed up as security is usually a loss of freedom, and that what men call completion is nothing but the blind will of life pushing them into chains. Look at history. Kings, generals, men of genius, men who shaped nations, were often ruined not by their enemies, but by the women they thought would bring them peace. Great fortunes have been lost in courtrooms. Empires have been shaken by affairs of the heart. Even in the modern age, the average man discovers too late that his downfall did not come from the battlefield, but from the bedroom. One mistake repeated across centuries, believing that love would save them. Schopenhauer refused to play that game. He saw through the theater of romance, calling marriage the trap into which nature lures the individual for the sake of the species. He preferred solitude over illusions, even if solitude demanded pain. That pain, at least, was his own. Most men, however, are not so fortunate. They grow up fed on promises, that a good woman will complete them, that devotion will be rewarded, and that marriage is the highest bond. Only when the bills come due, in their finances, their ambitions, their sanity, do they see what Schopenhauer saw from the beginning. This script is not about bitterness, it is about clarity. It is about stripping away illusions before they strip away your life. What follows are 10 harsh truths about women that most men only learn too late. You will not find them in love songs or romantic comedies. You will find them in the wreckage of men who gave everything and ended with nothing. If you learn them now, you still have a chance to remain sovereign.
The first harsh truth is this: women are not here to complete men. That is the illusion sold to you since childhood, that somewhere out there exists the one, a perfect counterpart who will fill the emptiness inside you. Every song, every movie, every cultural script whispers the same lie. Find her, and your life will finally make sense. But Schopenhauer saw this myth for what it truly is, a mask worn by nature to enslave men to reproduction and distraction. What men call completion is not the discovery of a missing half, but the awakening of instinct. When a man falls in love, he feels intoxicated, convinced he has touched eternity. But beneath the poetry is biology, and beneath biology is the blind will, the drive to preserve the species, indifferent to the suffering of the individual. Schopenhauer wrote that love is nature's trick to achieve her ends. That trick disguises itself as destiny, when in truth it is compulsion. The man who believes a woman will complete him hands over his power. He ties his identity to her moods, her approval, her presence. When she leaves, he feels hollow. When she stays, he feels dependent. Either way, he is diminished. Instead of becoming whole, he becomes half of someone else's story. In modern times, this illusion is even stronger. Social media bombards men with images of perfect couples, influencers selling happiness through partnership, endless dating apps that reduce existence to swipes and matches. Men begin to think their worth is measured by whether they are chosen by a woman. They chase validation instead of building sovereignty. But completion was never hers to give. A man who builds his life on the foundation of another person builds on sand. The first storm, an argument, betrayal, disinterest, and the structure collapses. Completion is not found in romance. It is forged in solitude, in discipline, in mastering one's own desires. The harsh truth is this: if you still believe a woman will complete you, you have already lost. She is not the missing piece of your soul. She is the mirror reflecting your weakness back to you. The only man who cannot be broken by love is the one who no longer seeks salvation in it.
The second harsh truth is that sacrifice does not earn respect. From the time men are young, they are taught that giving, their time, their money, their effort, their very life, is the highest proof of love. The myth goes, the more you sacrifice, the more she will love you. But Schopenhauer warned that this instinct to give everything is not noble. It is servitude. It drains a man of his strength while breeding contempt in the one he serves. The third harsh truth follows from it. The woman who receives endless sacrifice rarely responds with gratitude. Instead, she begins to despise the man for his weakness. Respect is not purchased through surrender. It is maintained through strength, through boundaries, through a refusal to be consumed. The man who makes himself a martyr for her happiness does not inspire loyalty. He invites betrayal. Look at the modern world. How many men slave away at jobs they hate, not to fulfill their own ambitions, but to provide for families that barely honor their presence? How many sacrifice health, dreams, and freedom, only to face divorce papers and a court system that strips them further? These are not isolated tragedies. They are the pattern of a civilization built on the illusion that male sacrifice is rewarded. In truth, it is punished. Schopenhauer saw this centuries ago. He wrote that love is not an elevated bond, but a serious business matter for nature, one in which the man pays the higher price. He sacrifices energy, wealth, focus, all for the continuation of the species, not his own flourishing. When a man sacrifices beyond reason, he is simply feeding the will of life, never his own soul. In relationships, a paradox emerges. The man who sacrifices least is often valued most, for he signals strength and independence. The man who sacrifices everything is discarded like an empty husk. The tragedy is that most men discover this only after decades of pouring themselves out, too late to reclaim what was lost. The harsh truth is clear. Sacrifice will not save you. It will not secure love, respect, or loyalty. It will hollow you out and leave you broken. A man must learn to give from strength, not surrender, or he will give until there is nothing left of him.
The fourth harsh truth is this: marriage is not security, it is surrender. Society dresses it in sacred vows and legal contracts, promising stability, family, and a future you can rely on. But beneath the ritual lies the reality Schopenhauer never stopped mocking. Marriage is the exchange of freedom for chains, the illusion of safety that conceals the certainty of sacrifice. Men enter it believing they are securing love forever. They imagine a loyal companion, a stable home, a legacy. But what they actually bind themselves to is a system where their obligations multiply endlessly, while their authority diminishes with every passing year. The man who once roamed freely is soon shackled by mortgages, bills, and compromises that choke the very spirit that once made him strong. Schopenhauer called marriage a foolish attempt to settle down amidst the storm of existence, as if one could anchor himself against the chaos of life by fastening himself to another. But the storm does not end. It only rages harder, and now he has no way out. In the modern age, the illusion of security is more dangerous than ever. Divorce laws tilt heavily against men, and the promise of permanence often dissolves into custody battles, financial ruin, and endless resentment. A man who once sought comfort finds himself robbed of everything he worked for, wondering how he could have been so blind. He thought marriage secured his future, but it only secured his servitude. The cruel irony is this: the freedom a man once had to pursue his calling, his work, his path, is precisely what made him valuable in the first place. By sacrificing that freedom in the name of security, he kills the very essence that made him a man. The harsh truth is undeniable. What society calls security in marriage is, in truth, the slow erosion of sovereignty. A man may gain a family, but he loses himself.
The sixth harsh truth is that women test men constantly. What most men interpret as random arguments, sudden complaints, or shifting moods are not accidents. They are examinations, probing for weakness, for hesitation, for inconsistency. A woman tests to see if the man she is with can be swayed, controlled, or broken. The man who fails these tests by apologizing too quickly, by bending too easily, by showing desperation, loses her respect. And once respect is lost, affection soon follows. The seventh harsh truth is that control is rarely direct. Women do not conquer by force, they conquer through influence. Emotional storms, guilt, subtle manipulation, silent treatment, or even charm, these are the weapons of soft power. Schopenhauer described women as masters of instinct, capable of bending men not by logic, but by emotional sway. He saw in their nature a capacity to destabilize the male mind, pulling him away from reason and into the realm of reactive impulse. Machiavelli would have recognized this dynamic instantly. He warned that the ruler most easily toppled is the predictable one, the man who reacts in the same way every time. Women, consciously or unconsciously, exploit this truth. They push buttons, shift tactics, and alter moods precisely to see if a man is solid or fragile. If he is solid, they yield. If he is fragile, they take control. In the modern world, this pattern is everywhere. Men find themselves confused, asking why their partner seems to start fights for no reason. They do not realize that the reason is always there. The fight is the test. Will he remain calm? Will he lead? Or will he crumble into pleading, excuses, or rage? Too many men fail, not because they are unworthy, but because they never understood the game being played. The harsh truth is this: if you are a man who seeks peace at all costs, you will never find peace with women. You will be tested until you break. Respect does not come from appeasement, it comes from sovereignty, from being the one who cannot be controlled. And the man who cannot be controlled is the only one truly worth following.
The eighth harsh truth is that men waste their lives chasing the dream of the soulmate. The illusion of eternal love has been sold for centuries. Poets, priests, and Hollywood directors alike have told men that somewhere out there is a woman destined for them, the perfect partner who will make existence meaningful. Schopenhauer tore this fantasy apart. He insisted that what men call destiny is simply nature's will at work, pushing individuals into union for reproduction. It is not transcendence. It is enslavement dressed in poetry. The ninth harsh truth is that men pay for these illusions with their time, their focus, and often their very future. A man may give up his ambitions to build a family. He may abandon dreams of greatness for stability. He may trade his freedom for routine. And decades later, when the illusions fade, he looks back and realizes that the cost was not worth it. He sacrificed his one chance at sovereignty for promises that dissolved into nothing. Schopenhauer described it mercilessly. The ultimate aim of all love affairs is more important than all other ends in human life, and therefore it is quite right that such affairs seriously interfere with the ends of individuals and wreck the most careful calculations. Love is not a blessing. It is nature forcing the individual to serve the species, often at the expense of his own flourishing. Look at the world today. How many men abandon their passions, music, art, invention, business, in the name of love? How many now sit in quiet regret, bound by obligations they can no longer escape? And how many too late realize that the soulmate they believed in was never real, only a projection created by their own longing? The cruelest cost of illusions is not just wasted years, it is wasted self. The man who lives for a woman loses the man he might have been. He trades his highest potential for temporary comfort, and when that comfort fades, he is left with neither love nor legacy. The harsh truth is this: The price of believing in illusions is nothing less than your life. Only the man who sees through them early still has a chance to live as himself.
The 10th and final harsh truth is the most devastating of all. A man who builds his life around a woman inevitably loses himself. It does not matter whether she is faithful or unfaithful, kind or cruel. If she becomes the axis of his existence, he will orbit her needs, her moods, her demands, and in doing so, he abandons his own center. What began as devotion ends as erasure. History is littered with examples. Brilliant men, powerful men, men destined for greatness, undone not by failure of talent, but by surrender to love. Think of rulers who plunged empires into chaos because of a queen's whisper. Think of artists who abandoned their work to chase unstable passions. The pattern is timeless. When a man makes a woman his purpose, he ceases to be a man in his own right. Schopenhauer understood this with brutal clarity. To him, the will of nature disguises itself as romance, luring men into sacrifice for the sake of reproduction. In that process, the man's individuality is consumed. He becomes an instrument, not a sovereign. He thought he was choosing love. In reality, love had chosen him as a vessel for nature's indifferent plan. But the contrast is equally striking. Men who resisted this pull, who refused to define themselves by a woman, became forces of history. Schopenhauer himself never married, preferring solitude and philosophy to compromise. Nietzsche, too, walked the path of the outsider, preserving his independence at the cost of companionship. Even great statesmen and inventors often achieved what they did precisely because they placed their work above the entanglements of domestic life. The question is not whether women destroy men, but whether men destroy themselves by building their lives around them. The man who orbits a woman loses his trajectory. The man who orbits his own purpose becomes unstoppable. The harsh truth is this: devotion to a woman may feel noble, but it is the slowest form of self-annihilation. Only the man who belongs first and foremost to himself has a chance to create something that outlives him.
You have now heard the 10 harsh truths. And perhaps, as they sank in, you felt resistance. A voice inside you may have whispered, "But not all women are like that." Or, "My story will be different." That voice is the echo of illusion, the very illusion Schopenhauer spent his life tearing apart. The truth is not that women are the enemy. The truth is that the myths about them are. Illusions are the chains. Women are only the mirrors in which those chains are revealed. The real question, then, is not about women at all. It is about you. Will you continue to live by the lies that society has fed you since boyhood? That love completes you, that sacrifice earns respect, that marriage brings security? Or will you, like Schopenhauer, stare directly into the bleakness of reality and choose sovereignty over servitude? That choice defines not only your relationships, but your entire destiny as a man. Do not misunderstand. This is not a call to hatred, nor a demand for isolation. It is a call to awaken, to see clearly that your worth does not depend on a woman's approval, to understand that your freedom is not something you can trade for companionship without paying the ultimate price, to realize that a life built on illusions will always collapse no matter how carefully constructed. Schopenhauer's warning echoes across centuries. Solitude is difficult, but it belongs to you. Illusion is sweet, but it consumes you. Men who cling to the dream of completion, sacrifice, and security through women wake up too late, often after decades of lost time. Men who reject the dream early may suffer loneliness, but they preserve the one treasure no man can afford to lose: his sovereignty. So the challenge is before you. Do you live as most men do, blind until the end, destroyed by truths they refuse to see? Or do you step into the hard clarity now, while there is still time to build a life that is your own? The illusions are powerful, but they only work if you believe in them. See through them, and you will no longer be controlled. That is the choice Schopenhauer made. And it is the choice every man must face, before it is too late.